Hi everybody, I'm Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today we are going to talk about the importance of having staff meetings. Yes, all staff meetings are important, but in this I also want to discuss the importance of having other kinds of meetings with different kinds of staff in your office. Communication is the key to success, in my opinion, and the more you can communicate with your staff and tell them your goals, your expectations, and also to work out anything that might come up, especially in a new practice, because let's be honest, your head's always got to be on a swivel and you have to be willing to make some changes and be flexible depending on what's being thrown at you and what you're experiencing in your new business. The first thing that you should do is always make sure that you have a regularly scheduled standing appointment to meet with your manager or managers, depending on how big you are and how many managers you have in different departments. Also, to have meetings with other providers in your office if you have more than just yourself. It's really important that you have an agenda and that you communicate to everyone that it is expected of them to attend these meetings, and if you put them on the calendar and let them know ahead of time that it's a standing every Tuesday evening at 5 o'clock or every other Tuesday at 6 o'clock, then people should be able to clear their schedules and make sure they can attend. I think it's important to at least have weekly meetings with your managers and other providers when you first open, because like I said, there's so many things that are changing and you're presented with so many obstacles and situations that it's only helpful for everyone to be able to come together, communicate what's working, what's not working, what the goals are, and moving from there. I definitely feel that eventually you should be able to lessen the frequency of these meetings, and you will just have to determine that based on how things are going in your clinic and how well your people communicate with you outside of the meetings. Those staff meetings are a really good opportunity to remind your staff of expectations and anything that you have seen that have come up within the last amount of time from your last meeting that needed to be addressed, and addressing things as soon as they come up so they don't get out of hand or become bigger than they actually are from the beginning. So the provider meetings are important, the manager meetings are important, and then I think the all staff meetings could be once a month, honestly. They are something that brings everyone together, and it really makes the team feel like a team when you can come together and talk about things. The way I feel is best to do it is have a manager/provider meeting before you have the all staff meeting, so when you're creating the agenda for the all staff meeting, you use items and topics that are discussed in the manager and provider meetings and bring them to the all staff meeting. I also encourage you to reach out to staff about a week before the meeting, giving them a heads up that you're going to be having an all-staff meeting and asking them to submit to you, however you prefer, whether it's email or a list on your desk, of some things that they feel that should be discussed or addressed during the all-staff meeting as well. This brings a teamwork approach. You also are able to maybe talk about something that you aren't thinking about or forgot about. And what I do is I keep an electronic sticky note on my desktop on my computer, and I add topics to that in between meetings, so I have a reference point to go to and look at when I create that agenda. I also email the agenda the day before the meeting so everyone can kind of take a look at it, and if there's any last minute details or topics that were missed, they can reach out to me to make sure that we get it on there. Another thing that you have to include in your all staff meeting that I think works wonderfully, and you're going to thank me, I think, is always at least having one HIPAA topic and one OSHA/safety topic. That way, when you send out the recap to everybody after the meeting, you can label HIPAA and OSHA, and so if you ever were to get audited from HHS or your local OSHA, you can tell them that you do topics once a month or however regularly you have all staff meetings, showing them that you have a topic in each department explaining and reviewing anything that should come up. Obviously, if you had an on-the-job injury or illness, you would want to discuss that, and And if you had a breach, you'd want to discuss that on what happened, how to avoid it in the future, what has been done to help avoid it in the future. But if none of that presents itself, which often it doesn't, it's always good just to do little reminders here and there, because the trainings for the staff are only once a year, and it's always nice to just have a little refresher, especially if you see people maybe walking a gray area or forgetting to do something. It's a friendly reminder, everybody sees it, and then it's in writing. And then you keep all of those recaps of the minutes of the meeting in a designated spot. So if you ever needed to go back and reference it to a staff member when it comes to disciplinary stuff, or reminding them of some kind of workflow, or also a HIPAA or OSHA issue, it's right there. I encourage you to keep agenda and minutes easily accessible so that if you ever need to reference back, it's right there. And it's a really good piece of communication. I know my staff usually keep those recaps, especially if they're new or things have changed, so that they can reference back to it if they need to, or use it also as a piece to help train new staff when they come on board. I think after you open for a while, like I had said, changing the frequency of how often you meet with your managers and your providers, but honestly, if you're going to have a regular, frequent standing meeting, it should be with your manager or managers or head of departments, because that's how you're going to be most in touch with your office and what's going on. It's unrealistic for them to come to you all the time and for you to be aware and up to date on all of the things that are going on, because if you have good managers or manager, they address everything in real time and take care of it, so you don't have to worry about it. But you do need to be informed about it, and you do need to be aware of it at some point. And so having those standing meetings really helps, and then the manager knows just to hold on to it and not bother you with anything until you have your meeting. The provider meeting, I think once a month, once everything settles down, is completely doable. And then once you feel that everybody has a good grasp on things, even once a quarter for provider meetings. But if you're going to be supervising any mid-levels like nurse practitioners or physician assistants, then I feel it'd probably be best to do the once a month, because you are the supervising, and it just looks good. If something were to come up, any kind of legal action or board issues, you can prove to them that you are regularly meeting with your mid-levels. You're bringing up anything that you see in their chart notes that needs to be addressed, that doesn't need to be addressed immediately, but something that you do want to bring up with them, and having those agendas and also those recaps for those meetings at that time. If you need to have somebody in on those meetings, like your manager or someone to record the minutes and then type up the recap, that's totally a good idea, especially since your plate is probably overly full and you want to make sure you have those just for documentation and purposes in case you need them in the future. Department meetings are important depending on how big you are. When I was at the big allergy office, we had 13 locations, 4 states, and it was hard to do all staff meetings for the whole company. We did one every year at the end of the year when we wanted to review benefits and just have a year-end recap. But other than that, I let the managers in each location kind of do their own location meeting, and if there was anything that needed to be brought up, then I would communicate to those on-site managers to bring it up. Mostly we had department meetings, and that's where all of the front desk people would join and all of the back office people would join, and the scribes and billing together we'd have meetings. And that's how we communicated the best with one another, is by roles and departments. It always is good to have strong communication. And if you're going to ask your staff to do an all-staff meeting, in my suggestion, even if you don't usually close for lunch, you should still close for lunch for that meeting, because you can post it ahead of time, you can make sure your schedule accommodates that, and people who are off that day, you can ask them to come in. All hourly staff do and should get paid for their time in a meeting, and you provide the lunch for them. This helps with camaraderie, morale, and just to show a little bit of appreciation. It goes a long way, even though it doesn't seem like much, but providing a nice lunch and paying them to come together and talk about things, work out things, communicate goes a long way. Now for your salaried staff, it doesn't really matter, but sometimes it might be nice for you to also provide them with a nice dinner, maybe after hours, and meet off-site and talk about things. And it's a tax write-off if you do it that way. But, just thinking about that and showing a little bit of appreciation can go a long way, and it really can lift the mood, especially if things are a little tense or a little stressful, because let's be honest, every business has its moments. If you have any suggestions on how you communicate and get your staff together and have meetings, I would appreciate you to put that in the comments. And if you have any suggestions on how frequently you like to meet with certain staff members, or any kind of topics you feel should always be discussed or often discussed during these meetings, please leave that in the comments below. If you haven't yet, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Spring is coming. I can feel it. I don't care what that darn groundhog says. I'm being optimistic, and I hope that you guys see it too. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.